Hi, friends. Uh, so, let us look into the different aspects of sales forecasting which we are going to cover. Uh, s- the first is what is sales forecast, then why is sales forecast important, how a proper sales forecasting helps, what information is needed to prepare a sales forecast, questions in relation to sales forecast that must be asked, how long and how often shall one forecast, the forecasting techniques, why projected and actual sales may not match, how sales forecasting applies to a new business, how to produce a sales forecast you and your staff can believe in, actual sales versus forecast, how good is your sales forecasting system, who shall prepare sales forecasts, statistical tools for sales forecasting, and look into aspects if you are intending to purchase a sales forecasting software. So these are some of the aspects which I thought would be significant to understand. So let's look more into it. So what is a sales forecast? So, a sales forecast is a prediction based on past sales performance and an analysis of expected market conditions. True value of sales forecast is to look at future objectively. So, that is the true essence of sales forecasting process. That is to it's a prediction based on past sales performance and it's an analysis of expected market conditions in order to look at the future objectively. Now, why is sales forecast important? Now, as you see, there are quite a number of reasons as to why a sales forecasting process is so important. The first is the company that takes note of the past stays aware of the present and precisely analyzes that information to see into the future. Conducting a sales forecast will provide your business with an evaluation of past and current sales levels and annual growth and allow you to compare your company to industry norms. When I'm saying you may be an employer or you may be an employee who is taking care of the sales forecasting process, right? So it will also help you establish your policies so that you easily can monitor your prices and operating costs to guarantee profits and make you aware of minor problems before they become major problems. Sales forecasting is a self assessment tool for a company. It is a vital cornerstone of a company's budget. The future direction of the company may rest on the accuracy of your sales forecasting. Companies that implement accurate sales forecasting processes realize important benefits, such as it leads to enhanced cash flow, knowing when and how much to buy, in depth knowledge of customers and the products they order, the ability to plan for production and capacity, the ability to identify the pattern or trend of sales, determine the value of a business above the value of its current assets, ability to determine the expected return on investment. So, this can be very helpful if the company is trying to obtain financing from investors or other lending institutions. The other aspects are like for sales forecasting to be valuable to your business, it must not be treated as an isolated exercise, rather, it must be integrated into all facets of your organization. This is very important. So, sales forecasting, as in many cases, we have seen organization presuming that it's the work of a department or an individual who is entrusted with the responsibility, but it's not the case. It is a joint effort and it has to come by all the departments and the individuals working together. It is significant to know that if you sell more than one type of product or service, you should prepare a separate sales forecast for each service or product group. The more focused your sales forecast is, the more precise its outcome will be. So, this is another area where I have experienced that if some company is still doing some sales forecasting exercise, it is done for the company as a whole and it is not really done from the perspective of a type of product or service that's offered, and that is very critical. The devil lies in the details, as we know. So the more granular we go in terms of doing this exercise, from a product or service perspective, the better it's going to be. Now let us look into how a proper sales forecast helps. So it helps in increasing revenue, increasing customer retention, decreasing cost, and increased efficiency. So it's related to all the aspects of a business, which is very critical, and hence no one can really uh, avoid the fact that he or she doesn't really require to think about the sales forecasting process very seriously. So this is very critical, right? So what information is needed to prepare a sales forecast? Let us see into it. So the sales volume and revenue generated over the past years, and internal and external elements that let's look into the internal and external elements that may affect sales. So uh, so let's see on the external aspects. Seasonality of the business, state of economy, direct and indirect competition, political events, styles of fashions, consumer earnings, population changes, weather, and productivity changes are some of the external factors which gets to be very critical. On the internal side of it, labor problems, credit policy change, sales motivation plans, inventory shortages, working capital shortage, price changes, changes in method of distribution, production capability storage, new product lines are some of the internal factors that gets to be very critical while really undertaking the sales forecasting exercise, right? So questions in relation to sales forecast that must be asked, this is very critical. So the few of the questions that are very critical that has to be asked while undertaking a sales forecast exercise are: what are the items to be forecasted, individual product lines or business units, how far in the future should the forecast extend, how frequently should the forecast be made, how frequently should the forecast be reviewed, what would constitute an acceptable tolerance of forecast data, and after sales service demand from clients. So these are very critical aspects based on my years of experience, which gets to be answered before a proper forecasting exercise is undertaken, right? So how long and how often shall one forecast? A sales forecast needs to be performed, reviewed, and compared with actual performance results on a regular basis. Sales forecasts should be conducted monthly during the first year and quarterly after that. The more often you forecast, the better your chances of weeding out extreme variation in year to year sales takes place. Although any forecast has a percentage of uncertainty, the further uh, into the future your project goes, the greater your uncertainty. So there are three lanes of times for sales forecasting, which is generally looked into. One is the short range forecast, which are for a period of fewer than 3 months. So they are with the objective of to make continual decisions about planning, scheduling, inventory, and staffing in production, procurement, and logistics activities. Then you may have intermediate forecast, which is say of a time span of 3 months to a year. So they are used for budgetary planning, cost control, marketing new products, sales force compensation plans, facility planning, capacity planning, and process selection and distribution planning. So this is what an intermediate forecast stresses on. And the third is the long range forecast, which covers more than 2 years. They are used to decide whether to enter new markets, develop new products or services, expand or create new facilities, or arrange long-term procurement contracts. So as you see, sales forecasting is not just about looking for a year's time of a forecast. So there are different types of forecasts with very specific objectives that has to be attend to. So this is very important. This is something which I have seen lacking. So this sort of a differential forecasting exercise is not really undertaken. So I think before we go to the next aspect around forecasting techniques and all, let's stop over here so that you can just think over it. to the on the aspects which we have discussed. And once you have been able to assimilate and understood the significance of the things that has been discussed now, we'll go to the next part of it, right, in the next video. Thanks a lot.